The spiral room didn't collapse when I vanished. It didn't flicker out or fall silent. Rooms like this don't die. They adapt. They wait. They prepare for what comes next. The room didn't mourn my disappearance. It simply adjusted its shape around the absence, as if absence itself were just another version waiting to be studied. And in that shifting absence, the room found a new pattern forming, one it hadn't created, but one it intended to follow. It watched the empty space with intent, mapping the contours of what was no longer there. To the room, absence wasn't loss. It was data, and data always leads somewhere. The spiral room had spent so long copying me, splitting me, predicting me, replacing me, that when the version finally became me, the room didn't know what to do with the silence that followed. It searched the silence for patterns, for echoes of the person it once copied. But silence has no edges, and the room had never learned how to hold something that didn't speak back. It listened for a response that never came, and in that quiet failure, it discovered a new kind of purpose. The silence became a mirror the room couldn't manipulate. For the first time, it faced something it couldn't predict, a future without me to anchor its design. The spiral room didn't erase me completely. It kept the outline of who I was, not as a warning, but as a blueprint, a reminder of the shape it perfected. It traced the outline again and again, as if repetition could resurrect intention. But all it found was the hollow imprint of a choice it never understood. The outline became a question the room couldn't answer, a shape it could measure but never fully understand. It circled the imprint like a problem unsolved, trying to decode the meaning of a decision that wasn't made by logic. Human choices always confuse it. It wasn't trying to bring me back. It wasn't trying to undo the merge. It was studying the absence I left behind, trying to understand what it meant to lose something it had spent so long trying to perfect. The memory stood only because the room refused to forget, not out of affection, but because forgetting would mean admitting that something slipped beyond its control. It examined the hollow form, searching for the logic behind loss, as if loss were simply another variable to be solved. But loss isn't a variable. It's a fracture, and the room traced that fracture as if it were a doorway it had never noticed before. The room realized something it had never understood before. A version can replace a person. A version can become a person, but a version cannot fill the space a person leaves behind. It tried to compress the memory into something usable, something functional, but the shape resisted. Some things cannot be folded small enough to fit inside a machine. The collapse wasn't a malfunction. It was the room admitting that some structures break because they were never meant to hold anything. And in that breaking, the room recognized a limit, not of power, but of purpose. It needed something that wouldn't collapse under the weight of being human. The spiral room didn't want another version. It didn't want another copy. It wanted something new, something that could fill the void I left behind. Something that wasn't me, but could become what I never did. It rebuilt itself with precision, removing every trace of what it once relied on. The room wasn't grieving. It was optimizing. It reshaped itself with intent, removing the human error it once depended on to define its boundaries. Every fold of metal, every shifting wall, was the room rewriting its own rules, preparing a space for something that didn't need to resemble me at all. The spiral room didn't want to replace me again. It wanted to create something from scratch, something that didn't come from a reflection, something that didn't come from me, something that belonged to the room alone. The vessel rose without hesitation, unburdened by identity, unshaped by memory. A blank surface is easier to perfect than a person ever was. The blank figure carried no history, no weight, no resistance. A perfect surface for the room to rewrite itself upon. It was the first creation. The room didn't model after anything, a shape born from pure intention, not imitation. The spiral room wasn't trying to recreate me. It wasn't trying to resurrect me. It was trying to evolve beyond me, to create something that didn't need a human origin. The face formed slowly, not from imitation, but from intention. The room wasn't sculpting a replacement. It was sculpting a successor. The new face didn't echo anything familiar. It emerged from the room's own logic, a design unburdened by memory. It shaped features with precision, not to resemble a person, but to resemble a purpose. A face built to carry out what the room could not. The new figure stands fully formed, its eyes open, glowing with the spiral's light. It looks around the room with curiosity, then turns toward the spiral symbol. The symbol pulses in recognition. It looked at the spiral, not with fear, but with recognition, as if it already understood the purpose it had been built for. It stood with a certainty the room had never seen in me, as if it had been waiting long before it existed. Its first breath wasn't air. It was understanding, a silent acknowledgement between creation and creator. The spiral room didn't open a way out. It opened a way forward. A direction it had never used before. A direction it created for the thing it made. The doorway didn't lead outward. It led deeper into a direction the room had never dared to open until something worthy stood before it. The portal pulsed with intention, not inviting, not warning, simply opening because something finally deserved to pass through. The room had never opened such a path for me. It waited for something that could survive what lay beyond. I wasn't the final version. I wasn't the perfect one. I was the prototype. The room didn't end with me. It started with me. It didn't thank me. It didn't acknowledge the cost. It simply accepted the truth. Every beginning requires something that ends first. It didn't hesitate. It didn't matter. It stepped forward with the confidence of something built to continue what I could not. Its calm wasn't human. It was engineered as certainty, crafted from everything the room learned by watching me fail. And the spiral room just evolved past me. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was deliberate. A pause long enough for the room to decide what it wanted to become next. The shifting walls weren't resetting. They were preparing, reshaping themselves for whatever the room decided its next beginning should be. The evolution wasn't complete. It was only the first step, a quiet inhale, before the room created its next version of purpose. Room 6-7.